I wasn't gonna give my lunch money up. And I remember what my father said, and I stood to him and I looked him in his face and I punched him dead in his face, and he beat the fuck out of me. And from that point on, I knew my father didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Thank you, everybody. So if you don't know, here's what the show is. It's just a bunch of funny people telling like 100% true stories. Legend in the game, one of the original kings of comedy. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. D.L. Hughley, everybody. Let him hear it.
So I grew up in the city. I grew up on 135th in Avalon, a neighborhood called the Fives. And it was all black. And everywhere we went was black. Like we would get on the freeway and drive, and it'd be all black people. So I remember that's what I thought Los Angeles was. So I remember we would always watch The Price is Right, and white people would get on and say, "We live in LA," and I never saw you motherfuckers. Where are they at? So years later, I would go to Westwood, and it says, "Now entering West Los Angeles," and I went, "This is where they keep them. This is where they stay." No wonder I never saw them. I learned everything in my neighborhood. We had bullies, and back then, if you had a problem with a bully, my father, or a lot of fathers, made sure you had to go fight them. That was the deal. You had to face your fear. And I remember my father telling me, he said, "A bully's a coward. If you stand up to a bully and you punch him in his face, like the coward he is, he'll run away." And this dude named Clifford used to take my lunch money all the time. And one day, I was so hungry that I said I wasn't gonna give my lunch money up. And I remember what my father said, and I stood to him and I looked him in his face and I punched him dead in his face, and he beat the fuck out of me. And from that point on, I knew my father didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. But it taught me everything, almost everything people deal with. Like, I actually grew up next to a pedophile. We didn't know what he was. We didn't know what they called it. But my father used to always say, "Don't you ever let me catch you over this man's house." And little boys, this is a true story, would leave this man's house and they would be crying and they would have candy in their hands. And they would go, "You want some candy?" I'm like, "No, motherfucker, not that bad. If candy can make you cry, you can keep that shit, because booty for Skittles ain't a deal for me. It was just that the way I grew up taught me a lot about life. I remember learning about sex, which is the wrong place to learn about sex, is the neighborhood. I kissed this girl when I was in the third grade. Her name was Michelle. And I told this dude named Junior, I said, "Man, I kissed this girl, Michelle." He said, "Did you use your tongue?" I said, "Yes." He said, "She's pregnant." And I go home crying because I got to get a job to take care of a baby. And I remember waiting for my father. I was so scared to tell my father. And when he came home, I said, "Daddy, I got to talk to you." He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I kissed Michelle with my tongue, and now she's pregnant. I got to get a job, and I don't even have my own room, and is she going to sleep here with me?" And he laughed, but he never talked to me about sex. So later on, I'm growing up in the neighborhood. I eventually had sex. I got crabs. I'm not the only one that happened to. Don't act like it's just me. Same dude, Junior. I go to him, I said, "Man, I got some bugs down there." This dumb son of a bitch said, "Spray some Raid on your nuts." And I actually did it and had to go to Martin Luther King Hospital where they treated me because I could have poisoned myself. But I remember all the lessons I learned taught me how to look at the world. I remember the first time I ever got called nigga, the first time it ever happened. Now, I'd heard it all my life. I'd heard my parents say it, you know, "This nigga's crazy," but never directed at anybody with any sense of malice. So when we were in the 5th grade, we went on a field trip to Alvaro Street, which in Los Angeles is the oldest street in the world. And we would buy maracas and candy, and we'd be playing around. So me and my friend Donald, I wanted some ice cream. So I walked to the store, and I said, "Hey, man, can I have some ice cream?" He said, "We don't serve niggas." I said, "Well, then do you have strawberry?" Because I had no idea because Because we used to have these nuts on our table, and they were Brazilian nuts, and they called them nigger toes. And that's all he said, and Donald looked at me, he said, he's talking about us. And I said, they make ice cream out of us? And he said, no, he's talking about black people. And I remember being very upset, and I went home to my mother, and I went home to my father, and I told him that somebody had called me nigger. And my mother said to me something I'll never forget, and it really, honestly shaped the way I see the world. She said, so what did he call you? And I said, he called me a nigger. She said, are you that? I said, I don't know what it is. She said, how could you be afraid to be something you have no concept of what it is? She said, you're only what you answer to. And that's the way I grew up, and that's the way I see the world. Thank y'all for coming out.